Hello once again. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about layers. Layers is probably the heart of the Photoshop application. There's no way you can do all the great, cool, wonderful things that Photoshop is able to do without understanding layers. So I want to get right into it and just cover a little bit about layers basics and how to manipulate layers to make sense of what's going on in your images. So I'm picking up here where we left off with these two flowers that are now on the abstract green background. And if I take my move tool, the letter V, you'll notice that I'm able to move one of the flowers separately from all the other images. And why is that? Because each one of these images is on a separate layer. So let's take a look at our layers panel. Now if your layers panel is not open, you can open it by going to your window menu, so window, layers, or the keyboard shortcut, which is F7. Now on the Mac, you need to hold down the function key to press any one of these function keyboard shortcuts. So even though it says F7, you really are pressing function F7 on the keyboard. If I press function F7, you can see that my layers panel can hide and show. So the layers, I'm going to pull out my layers panel. You can pull it out if you want, or you can leave it docked with all the other panels. And it's important that I'm able to see all of my active layers. And just so that I'm not easily distracted, I'm going to close down these other panels. So right here in the little upper right corner of my panels, I'm going to collapse them to icons. Just like that, just so that they're out of the way. And my focus, my attention is solely on my layers panel, the most important panel. As a matter of fact, I actually require that if you're doing anything in Photoshop, your layers panel must be open at all times. So in your layers, another thing that you can do in your layers is change the thumbnail size. Right now they're kind of tiny. You can make them larger by right clicking in this empty area here, not here, but down here where there's no layers showing. Right click and you can choose either medium thumbnails or large thumbnails. And that way you can kind of get a better view as to what's going on. So with the layers, by clicking on any one of the layers, it then makes that particular layer active. So with my move tool, if I want to move what's on layer 2, click on layer 2 and I can then move it around. Click on layer 1, I can then move it around. Okay. Background layer, if you notice, this one is a little bit different, and that's the background where the green is. And by default, your background layer is locked. So I can't move that around. It'll tell you that it's locked. Now, what I want to do first is, first of all, tell you how to name these layers. It's very easy in Photoshop to end up with 10, 15, 20, 30 layers, and it can get very confusing. So organizing your layers panel is very important. So we're going to rename all of these layers so that it makes sense. So first of all, let's start with the backgrounds layer. When you want to rename that locked background layer, you just double click it. It pops up in the window, and I'm going to name it green grass. Give it any name that you want. Now you notice that now the padlock is gone and it's no longer in italics. Now it's just a regular layer that I can also move around. Layer 1 above it. Okay, if you want to rename a regular layer, you simply double click right over the letters and you can name it right there in the panel. So I'll call this white flower. This layer above it, double click right over the layers, I'll call that yellow flower. So now I know what is what. Okay. Now the other reason why this is very important is because if I want to choose a layer, I can now right click over the image. Right click, and I can choose the white flower. Now I'm on that layer. I can right click, choose the yellow flower. Now I'm on that layer. So by naming your layers, it makes it easier to use the right click menu to choose a particular layer. Okay. Now, a couple of things you can do with layers. First of all, you can hide and show layers. So the little eyeball there indicates whether the layer is visible or hidden. I can reposition my layers. So right now, if you take a look, the yellow flower is on top of the white flower. Well, that's because my yellow layer is on top of the white flower layer. If I hold down the mouse on the layer, I can drag it and place it underneath, which will then make the yellow flower go behind the white flower. So you can reposition your layers, basically changing the stacking order. Notice I'm not really going behind the grass because then you won't see them, because then the green grass layer will be over the yellow and white flower layers. So I'm not going to do that. It doesn't really make any sense. Okay, I can also, goodness gracious, change the opacity. So make that yellow flower layer more or less transparent. I'm using my Scorpio sliders here. Okay. I can duplicate a layer. So I'm going to take this white flower layer and hide it. Now I'm on the yellow flower layer. And let's say I want more than one. I want two of these. I can duplicate the layer. As with everything else in Photoshop, there's many different ways to do the same thing. I can duplicate a layer by right click and choose duplicate. I can also duplicate it by choosing in the upper right hand corner, there's a little flyout menu, and I can choose duplicate layer. I can also do it up here at the top in my menu, choose layer, duplicate layer. But you know me, I'm always going to give you the keyboard shortcut. So the keyboard shortcut to duplicate a layer is Command J. Now take a look at what happened in your layers. You'll see a yellow flower, and now there's a yellow flower copy. If you look in the layout, it only looks like you have one flower. But take the move tool and move it, you'll see that you in fact do have two. So there's the keyboard shortcut. But guess what? There's even a faster way to do this. If I want to make another copy of this flower, for example, I can select it with my move tool, hold down the Option key. Option means copy in a lot of these Adobe programs. So by holding down the Option key, notice I get a double-headed arrow. I can simply drag out a copy of the flower, and it automatically makes the other layer for me. Hold down Option, can drag out another copy. So now I have 4 yellow flower layers. Okay, now I can't show you how to duplicate without also showing you how to delete layers. Okay, so to delete layers, again, there's many different ways to do it. You can take the layer, there's a trash can in the bottom of your layers panel, lower right corner of your layers panel. I can take that yellow flower copy and I can drag it to the trash, plop it in there. I can also hold down the Option key and click on the trash can. By holding Option and click, it's going to delete whatever layer is active. So, gone. I can also just very simply click on the layer and on my keyboard just press delete. Okay, so whichever way works for you, there's many different ways to delete a layer. So now we're back to our yellow flower. The white flower is hidden. The other thing that you can do with layers, I'm going to keep this very simple. You can also resize. Maybe I want this flower to be a little bit smaller. So to resize, that's called transforming. Transforming. You can transform a layer. Transform begins with the letter T, T for transform. So when I press Command T, it gives me the option to transform. Now notice I see this bounding box around the layer. Okay, there's the right way and the wrong way to transform. We want to maintain the proportion of the flower. We don't want to squish it or squash it. So whenever you're transforming, you must hold the Shift key over a corner. It doesn't matter what corner you choose. Just pick any one of these corners, hold the Shift key, and drag towards the opposite corner. Okay, dragging towards the opposite corner. You let go of the mouse first, then the Shift key. Now, another way to transform is to hold, yes, put the mouse over the corner, hold the Shift key, but also hold the Option key. So Shift and Option will shrink the object within itself. Let go of the mouse, then let go of the keys. To set the transformation, you press Return. Okay, so that makes it smaller. Now, one thing you are not allowed to do is to make things larger. You cannot take a small flower or a small layer image for that matter and stretch it out. You see what's happening to the quality? It's getting very pixelated, poor quality. Okay, so you can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. Transforming, you can make things smaller. You cannot make things bigger. Okay, now there are exceptions to the rule, but for general purposes right now, any image layer, you're not allowed to stretch it out and make it larger. So I have this nice little flower here. I'm going to hold the Option key, make a couple of copies. Okay. And the other thing that you can do, I'm going to go to my white flower layer here. Okay. And you can also rotate a layer. So maybe I want to turn this a little bit, turn it here or there. So to rotate, I'm also going to press Command T to transform. But instead of putting the mouse over the corner of the box, I'm going to hold the mouse outside the box. Take a look at the cursor. When you place the mouse outside of the bounding box, it allows you to rotate the object. Okay, so I can turn the flower at an angle. When I'm liking the angle, I then press Return or Enter to set it. Okay. Another thing that you can do with layers is you can select more than one. So notice how I have, let's see, 6 yellow flower layers here, and maybe I want to move them all over to the other side. Well, instead of moving them one by one by one, I can move them all together. So I'm going to click on one of the yellow flower copies. I'm going to hold the Command key, and by clicking on the empty part of the layer, don't click here. Click on the empty part. Holding the Command key, I can select multiple layers, and then I can move them all at once. If I want to keep them like this as a unit, I can link them together. Okay. I can also put them in a folder. So you can take layers and you can organize them into folders. I'm going to drag it, plop it right there in that folder, and now I have a folder with the yellow flowers. So anything I do to the folder happens to everything that's inside the folder. I can press Command T. I can rotate them. Take the white flower, maybe put it there. Okay, so that's working with folders. You can put objects, you can put layers in a folder or in a group. Okay, I'm going to call these all yellow flowers. And now all those flowers are in that group folder. Okay, I can open up the folder and move the flowers one by one. But if I want to do everything to all the flowers, then I'm working with the group folder itself. Okay, so that is it for now. There are probably 50 more things that you can do with layers, but I'm going to keep that for the next video. So until then, peace out.